This is Lysha Holmes, the Key Recruitment, and I'm delighted to welcome back to our YouTube channel, Emma Morris of Embrace HR. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Lysha.
Welcome back. We got such great feedback from the very first video that we did, which obviously was when furloughing was quite a new thing to, particularly to the recruitment sector. And I think we're all experts in that now. And obviously, thank you to everybody who commented and really appreciated the advice that Emma gave last time. We thought it would be really beneficial to my connections and to people watching. And as we start to shift into how are we going to get back into a work environment. So obviously we're not quite there at the end of lockdown, but most company directors now are looking at strategies for how they're going to reintroduce both furloughed staff, but also the staff that they've continued to work, how that's going to work. So Emma, I mean, what would you say would be your the key factors when considering how to do this effectively?
Okay, so it's quite an exciting week in a lot of ways because the government have given us some indication that they're going to be releasing some guidelines on Sunday. So ahead of that, if people are wanting to kind of get their plans in place, they need to be thinking about what steps that they need to take. So the first thing to absolutely do is to do a risk assessment. Think about your duty of care as an employer. It continues whether the person's in the workplace or whether they're working from home for you. So think about what kind of different steps for different types of workplaces that you need to put in place. So get that risk assessment in place. Think about the different measures that you're going to have to look at. So that might be people traveling to work and how they can safely do that. It might be putting in place the higher level of personal and workplace sanitisation. So things like having hand sanitizer stations, making sure your high traffic areas are regularly clean. And also, obviously, how the social distancing can still be practiced when people return to the workplace. So that might be about phasing returns, staggering start and finish times and break times, having different shift patterns, obviously reviewing the layouts of your office so people aren't working so closely together, or maybe putting in additional screening either between desks or between workstations, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's all really effective, useful advice, actually. And obviously, you've never been to, you have been to my office, haven't you? Because you did the environment with me. So a lot of people watching are actually in similar environments to workplace. So what would your advice be with key areas like that, where you've got a number of different people coming in and out, where it's maybe harder to factor that in?
So, as I say, think about the layouts of your offices, look at what that's going to mean. There are definitely tools out there for putting in place screens in between the places, but you've got to think about your high traffic areas as well. So think about how people are going to be able to do that. So as I mentioned before about having the hand sanitizer stations at key areas, you know, if people are going to be coming to and from the office, what's the time that it's going to be least busy that they're going through, and when they're having to use the facilities. Okay, so when they get back to their workstation, you know, clean the hands, as I say, things like hand sanitizers, just making sure you're keeping up with the guidance that the government's giving around regular hand washing. I mean, even as something as simple as if you go into the bathroom, use a paper towel to open and close the doors when you're coming in and out of the bathroom. Simple measures like that are going to mean
my grandma was ahead of her time. My grandma always used to say, you pull your sleeve like that and you open the door like that when you come out of a public toilet. And she's like late grandma. She was very wise in doing that.
Think about vent machine buttons, lift buttons, that kind of thing. Yeah, don't touch it with your bare hand.
Yeah, very, very sensible advice. Now, obviously, a lot of what's been talked about, and obviously our previous video we talked about furlough. So those employers watching who have got furloughed staff who they're planning to then reintroduce, what would your advice be in terms from a cultural perspective, but also a practical, you know, how are they going to get back on it from an onboarding perspective? What would your advice be as an HR consultant?
I think we're going to have a real mix of people who are continuing to work from home, because I think the government is going to say, look, if you can still work from home, do that. But you are also going to have people back in the office. And so it's going to be a real mix. So you need to think about the balance between that. Have clear action planning in place so you can identify the priorities, who's going to work on what are the key things that you need to do now. Keeping in touch with the employees off-site, how you do that, consider their welfare, their mental health, their physical health, those kinds of things. Think about how you set up your meetings. So continue to have the Zoom meetings, even if you have got people in place. But one of the key things I would say as well is have the individual meetings, and whether that still be virtually or in the office, have those individual meetings, because you can have the team meetings and that can help build the team morale and things like that, but it's not the place to be asking somebody, how are you coping? So have those individual personal meetings, and also really communicate with staff as well, manage their concerns, because people are going to be concerned about coming back into the workplace. So communicate how you're going to be doing that, what measures you're putting in place, that you have thought about it and that you've done these risk assessments. But also think about those people still working at home. If it's going on for a longer period, they might have worked off the kitchen table for a while. So do they need more tools around helping them work better at home?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a conversation I had with a client recently. We talked about, you know, the ergonomics of, I'm sat now in my dining room, and I think you're sat in a proper office chair, but I'm sat at just a dining chair. So, you know, all these practical things, you know, are things that employers are going to have to think about if we are all work from home. And I think that that's what's been a really positive outcome from this, you know, pandemic, and that, you know, the fact that we're in a crisis together, is that the work from home perspective and the flexibility to allow people to do that work that probably wouldn't have had the opportunity before has been forced upon companies. And actually, I've had some really great feedback from people that they've really enjoyed it. But however, there are some that are feeling quite isolated. So I think it's really important what you've said there, that there's this great, you know, Zoom and Team and all these amazing forms of technology to keep people collaboratively connected. But actually, there will still be that you know, the odd individual that's feeling really isolated and really, you know, unsupported, and actually really, like I say, really very nervous from a health perspective about actually you know, you're going to have to come back into work if it's not possible to work from home all the time. So these are all, and it's an ever-changing story. You know, we'll definitely be inviting you back in again once we're, you know, maybe a couple of weeks into what's revealed on Sunday. And, you know, for any of my connections who aren't fortunate enough to have a permanent HR employee for the business, you know, Emma is obviously highly experienced in a number of different areas, and you've actually been in recruitment in the past as well. So for my recruitment connections particularly, there's a lot of empathy there. So, you know, Emma's contact details are available, and thank you so much for joining me again, and good luck.
Thank you. I'd encourage people to take a look at my website. I'm going to be putting lots of tips on there and lots of information about the government guidance. So please do head there and sort of have a look at what applies to your workplace.
Yeah, you send out, I get these emails from you, don't I, where it's the constant updates on what's happened, because you I think, did you say one day there were about, I don't know, 60 odd updates in one day? You're really good at taking the jargon out for people, you know, for people like myself, and just making it really simple. So definitely, you've definitely added value to Key Recruitment and been really supportive, as you know. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.